Hello. So I've been putting a lot of thought into some house rules. Now I think we're coming to the end of my kind of 6 month, 7 month campaign, this first test run of 5th edition. I'm starting to feel a little more confident saying, hey, I want to add some house rules. I haven't made a full list and I haven't fully thought of them, but I'm starting to think of kind of the main one. And it's going to sound pretty basic because I think Critical Role does it. I haven't watched everything Critical Role, but I've heard that he does this. But like removing a lot of like resurrection and making death permanent. I don't think I need to go as hardcore on it, but for story purpose and consequence purpose, I think there should be an absolute death. Some sort of like once your character dies in a certain way, in a certain fashion, at a certain time, it's possible that your character is just gone. This is not because I want to be a dick. I find it's actually pretty easy to accidentally kill your players in 5th edition, um, especially if like they're not running like some of the best builds or they're not like making the smartest decisions or if I am not very careful about the kind of monsters that I put in against them. And as a result, I think having the quick, readily available ability to get players up is great. In if you're just running basic 5e with not a lot of homebrew and you just want it to be super new person friendly. A lot of the people I'm playing with right now are really new. Like they haven't played D&D more than a year. And I think the way that I've been playing this campaign and running my campaign at the moment was meant to test the system. And I'm finding that story wise, I think it could be better if there was a more of a threat of permanent death. Now, should that come easy? No. I don't think that dice should just decide it at any point. I think it needs to be a combination of dice and stupid actions. But like obviously that's going to be situational basis based on how the players react, based on what part of the story they're in. I'm not deciding. I'm never going to decide I'm going to kill the player. If there's been a couple times where I've talked with players and I was like, hey, how's it going? And they're like, I don't really like this character. Can we give them a death or we kill them off sometime soon in a semi cool manner? Maybe a good story point to like make the story more tense. And that's kind of been a way that we have solved or I've solved and they have solved some of the issues. Like, if we're playing a character for 6 or 7 months and you're some people get bored with their characters and they want to move on to something else. And so having a conversation like that in a basic 5e is really nice but you have to find a way, especially if you don't tell the other players, how to keep that character dead. And I don't. There's not a lot of ways in D&D. It's like, well, say player moves on, doesn't want to play that character anymore, but he also doesn't want to let the other players know that he organized his character's death. Um, but the other players decide they're going to resurrect their friend. This guy's happy with his new character. He's about 2 sessions in, and they find a way to resurrect his old friend. Do I make him play two characters? Does he have to go back because he didn't want to ruin that story moment? Yeah, we could be more open about communication, but I think some secrecy amongst like how your choice as a player and your agency as a player is important, especially to how you want to interact with the group. Maybe you want to save that story for like 2 years down the road when we're sitting around the fire out back drinking beers, and you're like, "Hey, you remember that shit? This is what happened." And they're gonna be like, "Oh fuck." I want it to be fun, and I want them to have the option to do that. But there's also been times where it's like, now we're going on like some of these players have resurrected the same character like 3 times. And it's like, maybe the first 2 times, all right, especially if you didn't mean to or you didn't make, the right, or like he didn't really have a choice, like the dice fucked him, or, he wasn't really aware of a circumstance and got killed. Um, I could get that. But like after a certain point, I think it becomes, all right, how much gold do I have or do I owe the right favors? That's fine story wise, but like at some point it needs to be okay. Your character is pretty much gone. And there are story ways in 5e to make that happen. Loss of the soul, waiting too long. But if the players are smart, they're going to know how to avoid all that. And this is kind of where role play gets into it. A lot of times I'm like thinking, like, why would your character resurrect him? He spent a lot of time being a dick to you, but the players want to make sure the other players are having fun regardless of how the characters are acting. So there's a disconnect in story versus fun. Obviously we want to have more fun, but like if we sacrifice the story now it hurts the story later. So we have to find a compromise between the two, having good fun, not messing up the story for later on. And it just depends. As a DM, I'm very leaning towards the story, but in the moment, players are more about the fun. So finding a way to blend those two is kind of my job as the DM. So I think I haven't fully sussed it out. I'm still thinking about it, but I think I'm going to limit resurrection in my next fantasy 5e, pretty basic bitch rules. And I think I'm going to take out resurrection. I might allow revivifying because it's limited, right? You can bring them back in the moment pretty quickly. I may allow resurrection with a wish, but I'm still thinking about it. But for the most part, it should be very rare to bring a player back, even at higher levels. Is kind of how I want to do it in my campaign. And I'm going to talk about my players about it. If they don't like it, I have a consistent group of people, and I would rather keep them than make a rule that they don't like. Now, I will just make it a little harder for that to happen, in my games. I won't completely eliminate it, but I'll make it harder. And I think that would be my compromise. And my players say we want to keep resurrection, and even in my last little kind of impromptu poll in our group chat, I was like, hey, uh, what game do you want to play? You want to play Cyberpunk, Mage Punk, or like just another 5e game? And I kind of gave them the options of the three things that I would like to DM. And like I said, they picked Cyberpunk. So I'm going to try to leave a lot of this up to them. But if they're cool with it and cool with the house rule I put in place, I'm going to limit resurrection because I think it will add to story in a way. It'll add a lot of story tension, and I think story tension is important. In my campaigns, I want my players to be afraid of certain things in the world because when they overcome those things, it makes them feel more powerful. And I need to look into. I kind of want to look at more of like Critical Role and how they have gone into how he's handled it. I don't have as much time. I'm running essentially right now. I'm playing in a campaign. I'm running a D&D campaign. I'm prepping for another D&D campaign for after my other one, and I'm even prepping for another one for my fiance and her friends. So I've got a lot going on. I don't even get the chance to watch a lot of shows right now. So that's kind of where I want to go. And I think it'll be fun. I think it'll be a lot of fun, and I will probably make little shorts explaining my house rule decisions, sort of like I've done like the plot twists. And that's another thing. The plot twists are being seen by a lot of people in the shorts. Like one of them has like 400 views. Anybody who's watching those outside of the people who played at my table are just going to be missing all the context unless they've watched through most of the campaigns, which is like 50 hours of, so I don't expect it. But just let you know, those are kind of made for us as players and in my games at my table, not necessarily for everybody out there. It's not like it's bad if you watch them, but you're going to just have no context. So, I mean, that's just letting you guys know. But you guys have a good day.